Oh, hello. It's been way too long since I've done this. I don't remember what to do. So, first of all, happy Halloween. I'm not sure what time zone you guys are in, but for me, it is 11 p.m. on Halloween. So technically, the stream is gonna go into November, but who cares? It's Halloween all the time if you really want it to be. I mean, at least that's what I do. Every day is October 31st. For context, it's my favorite day of the year. So, yeah. I mean, if Christmas is your favorite day of the year, then every day can be Christmas if you really want it to be. I mean, sure, externally, the environment, the people around you, they may not act like it, but you could act like it. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be that one annoying friend who sets up like 3 months before the celebration. So yeah, is my audio okay? In hindsight, I really should have put in music, but I don't know. Slipped my mind, I guess. Yeah, and I'm also not using my regular PNG. I'm just using the Picrew from the thumbnail, and I've put the not the link, but I've put the name of the person who made this Picrew in the description, as always. So yeah, today we are going to be mostly reading. So I've prepared quite a quite a few drinks with me. We're going to be reading some spoopy Reddit stories from specifically from r/no sleep and also r/2 sentence horror. Yeah. I browse those occasionally, sometimes every few months, I guess, to get my horror fix because I love horror. Still freaks me out, but it's cool. It's just really cool. So yeah, I'm gonna be sorting by top of all time because I don't believe I've checked any of those out. It's great for stream content, and there's gonna be a mystery game that I'm gonna be playing after we're done with those. So that's fun. So once this stream is over, I might add timestamps to the description or in the comments just so any VOD watchers can skip around to whatever part you want to hear. So, yeah, I mean, I think most people will be VOD watchers anyway because I don't think I'm streaming at a very convenient time. And also, this year Halloween is on like a Tuesday, so unfortunate. So yeah, we're just probably gonna get into it. Um, do we want to start with 2 sentence or do we want to start with our full on like no sleep? Because full on no sleep is like really. I mean, it's not really. It's kind of long. It's mostly long. Yeah. So you know what? We could have some appetizers, right? We should just have some appetizers. So let's pull that up. All right, we're on 2 sentence horror. We're just gonna be going down. This is such a scuffed setup. Um, so yeah, let's update this. Currently, 2 sentence. No. Two. 2 sentence horror. Bada bing, bada boom. And oops. There we go. Yeah, it's a cute setup, isn't it? All right. So let us begin our 2 sentence. Wait, can you see my cursor from here? Okay, I'm not sure. All right. I don't know how many we're going to read. We're gonna read you know, a fair amount, I'd say. All right. So, this first one. Okay, you know, should we do some context? Some context for two-sentence horror? Duh. No, I think we all know what it is. We all know what it is. Okay. It's just that there's a really easy tendency for these to be really bad and funny. I think most people really like bad two-sentence horror. I mean, I think they're funny as well, but when it's good, it's really good, but it's really hard to do. All right, and we are sorting for top of all time. So these should be the best ones, obviously, because if these aren't the best, then what are they? All right. So first is by Dareth. I'm not gonna pronounce that. 4 years ago. Okay, it's been a while. All my life, my parents have told me not to open the basement door, but I got curious and disobeyed them. What is that glowing ball in the sky, and why does it hurt my eyes? Hey, okay, we're starting off strong with a fun case of never letting your child see the sun. Very cool. This isn't that scary, but it's cool. It's cool. I do not condone locking your children in the basement their entire life, but still. Okay. Cool. Second one by Nathan is writing. When the kidnapper made me guess where he kept my daughter, I went for the basement, and he said correct, allowing me to see her. But when I found her severed head in there, I learned that every other choice would have been correct as well. Ooh. This one's a good old case of dismemberment. Yay! Child dismemberment specifically. Very nice. This sounds like a Batman villain, you know what I mean? It's like the Joker, not the Joker. I was gonna say the Riddler as well. I don't know. What's a villain that like kills but also does this kind of thing? It might be the Joker, honestly. It might be the Joker. Um yeah, that's honestly if this actually happened in real life, I think that would be the most fucked up thing. But also just holy shit, that is some horrific like creativity right there. All right, third one by the the beardeding. I've been working on stories to compete with the best on the sub, but I'm finding it near impossible. I'm beginning to think some of you are just making yours up. Oh, this is a fun meta joke, but also like Im- it just implies that this person is just devious, just scheming, just scheming with like weird like stories. It's a more subtle one. You could easily dismiss this as just a meta joke, but this does imply that this user is up to no good. That's fun. This is what, number 4? By Drag Me Taco Bell. Whenever I considered killing myself to escape my parents' abuse, I just recite my mantra, you don't deserve to die. Ironically, now that they're old, hungry, covered in bed sores, and begging to be put out of their misery, I still have the same mantra. See, this is just like real life stories, you know. A lot of good horror just pulls from just real life scenarios. You don't really need supernatural elements to make something scary. This is it. This is it. Yeah, it's just yeah. When parents kind of abuse you like that, you tend to I'm assuming no like Stockholm or anything. You just don't really want to care about them when they're old and need help. Actually, a lot of older people, I'd say, from my experience, encourage young people to have children because, hey, oh shit, who's gonna take care of you when you're older, right? But it to me, it's such a weird reason to want to give birth and just have a whole child. You know, just the idea that, hey, we need a caretaker when we're old and weak. So we're going to introduce this whole human being to the world, go through all the hoops and obstacles of raising this child up, just so that not only will we have a successor to our family line, but also we have a caretaker when we're older. And so the same logic kind of applies when if I say, hey, I don't want to have children when I'm older, and they'd say, hey, but who's going to take care of you when you're older? And I just find that really screwed up logic. You know, if I were to make the decision, you know, with a partner to have a child, like to give birth to a child, not to adopt anyone, but to just give birth to a child, the implications of me doing that would, like, I would have to think about that for a really good while. Yeah, like it's a big responsibility. It's not just the, well, no duh, we need to continue our family line, and well, no duh, who's gonna take care of us when we're older? No, 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 no. Deciding to give birth to a child is not as simple as that. If you're doing that, you're being irresponsible. So, anyway, I've gone on a huge tangent. Huge tangent. I'm sorry. We're here for horror stories, not for some life discussion. Okay, but this one's cool. Next is by Dayan. She said, last time we're stuck in a time loop, which really pisses me off because that's what. Okay, that's just cool. That's not horror. That's not horror. That's just really cool. It's such a clever use of the medium. That is fun. Next is by from Strange Seeds. I framed the first letter I got as a I framed the first letter I got as a police officer from a woman thanking me after I'd supported her through her daughter's suicide. I passed it in my hallway every day for nearly 8 years before realizing the handwriting was the same as on the girl's suicide note. Wait. Oh, that took me a second. Oh, okay. Again, there hasn't been a single supernatural thing on all the good ones. It's all just really screwed up like real life things. This is cool. This isn't scary still, but these, again, like I said, these are just really cool. What people can do with just 2 sentences. Just a simple setup and payoff. Brilliant. Alright, next is by Bookseer. Now be careful. That line of rock salt is the only thing keeping them out, the man said, welcoming my group into his refuge. Sea salt, I clarified. Sea salt keeps us out. Okay, that's just funny. That's just funny. I assume this is like a vampire type situation where it's like, oh, they can't cross the line. They can't cross the line. Yeah. That is hilarious. Okay. This one's by a deleted user. My husband has been very upset with me since my failed suicide attempt. He's crying nonstop and he won't acknowledge me. Well, that's a ghost. That's a ghost. Okay. Next is by Try and Try Again 123. I was born blind, but was lucky enough to have a loving mother who took care of my every need. Imagine the betrayal I felt when a stitch slipped and a ray of light hit my eye for the first time. Okay, that is beautifully fucked up. Beautifully fucked up. So this mother, this very loving mother, stitched your eyes at a young age. I can't imagine the logistics of this situation. Why would the mother do this? And how much gaslighting did it take to convince this person that being blind is the inability to open your eyelids? Because being blind is not being able to see at all. For most people, it's really blurry, but not complete darkness. Oh my god! But it's cool. This is cool. No, no, no ads. Okay. We'll keep going for a few more. This one's by MRRO Bot 2303. As I slit her throat, I looked in her unblinking eyes and realized too late that she wanted to live. I knew it to be true because mirrors don't lie. Ooh, that one is, yikes. That's just sad. That is really sad. Also, not so fun fact. If you wanna do a thing, attempt something like this, slitting your throat, it's like really bad idea. Don't do that. It's like at least some other methods allow you to survive given some lucky circumstances. Like there's a chance for you to survive if you regret it, like this girl, right? But slitting your throat, first of all, your survival instincts are going to kick in so hard. Like trying to do that in the first place is going to be terrible. Also, the absolute agony and pain of you doing that would just be horrible. It's not good. It's just there are better methods out there. I don't condone any of it. But if you want to do it really bad, I can't stop you. Just don't do this. Just of all things, please. Oh god. I mean, hey, if you're okay, I gotta be more responsible. Okay, if you're feeling like shit, you can always seek help. Therapists can be kind of expensive, so if you can't afford that, then you can talk to the people you really trust. It's always better if you want to attempt anything. Always consult people you really trust first before attempting anything, because you may regret it. Yes. Okay. Next is by Tatsuya. Please, take me instead, I scream, grabbing at the two men who took my child. Sorry, ma'am. Children only, they said, as they continue loading up the last lifeboat on the ship. Damn. Now come on, be a more responsible mother. What do you mean, take me instead? Jeez. This one's by Lycanthropy. So it turns out you can feel everything that happens to your body after death. I suppose I should be flattered my husband still finds me attractive after all these years. Okay, that should be it for no 2 cents horror. I mean, I suppose it is flattering. I suppose. I don't imagine this is consensual. Although, hey, actually, now that I think about it, if you give your consent, your full consent of your non-autonomy after you die, isn't necrophilia technically okay in those specific circumstances? Huh. That's interesting. That is very interesting. Ugh. Also, there's something really freaky about looking at like corpses. Okay. If you are under the age of a certain threshold, I don't know. You should be watching this, but because I'm talking about some really fricked up stuff. No, I should have put like an age warning on this. But I mean, if you're on this channel, why are you even on here um if you're not at least of a certain age? Anyway, that should be it for two sentence horror. I this one, I don't know what to say about this one. All right, two sentence horror is done. Now, let's how do I do this? Oh my god, there's two of me. There we go. That was fun. Again, nothing really scared me. Although I'm sure this will change very soon. But they were really interesting. Lots of really interesting stuff. So, next we're going on r/no sleep. And I'm picking out the top 3 of all time. And this should be good because people post on r/no sleep way more than two sentence horror. It's also a way more popular subreddit. And yeah, this is a whole community on here. 2 of these are from 4 years ago, and one of them is from 2 years ago, which is interesting, I will say. So, 3 stories. We're going to be checking all of them out one by one. Yeah. How do I do this? There we go. And boop. And we'll change this to currently r/sleep. All right. So this one is by Grand Theft Motto. I don't know why I have trouble pronouncing this. Motto. Yeah, Motto. Grand Theft Motto. Anyway, wait, can you see my cursor? I think you can. Nah, doesn't matter. This adds a bit more to the visual. Woo-wee. Something walks whistling past my house every night at 3:03 a.m. Well, 3:03. Well, what are you using the? No, I was gonna say the 24-hour system, but that's not the 24-hour system. Oops. Okay, 3:03. Actually, okay. One thing I want to say. One thing I want to say is that everyone who says "ooh, 3 a.m. is spooky" have never stayed up at 3 a.m. before. I'm gonna be honest. Like anyone who says the hours between 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. are like terrifying, I'm sorry. Like if you've played Five Nights at Freddy's and you think it's like the most terrifying thing ever, sure. Sure. But if you've watched like horror movies and heard like folklore and like stories here and there about, oh, you shouldn't stay up at so and so hours, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. It's like really, really scary stuff. Ghosts come out at night. I'm sorry. Try and stay up. It's honestly one of my favorite times of day to stay up, because I don't know, there's something about it that's really calm. It's really calm and comforting. I don't know. But 3 a.m. it's just not hot. Also, it's scary because it's 3:03 a.m. Ooh, like why 03? Ooh. Now that's actually one of the techniques that I've noticed from a lot of people in r/no sleep. Things are scary when it's more specific, like 3 a.m. Like, whoa, something walks whistling past my house at night at 3 a.m. Whoa, 3 a.m. scary. Not really. I say, whoa, this weird thing keeps happening at 2:57 in the morning. Why is it always at this specific time? Something's up. And that's kind of weird. That's kind of scary. So anyway, these are a little long. I should be on these as soon as possible. All right. So every night, no matter the weather, Something walks down our street whistling softly. You can only hear it if you're in the living room or the kitchen when they walk by, and it always starts at exactly 3:03. The sound starts faint, somewhere near the beginning of the lane near the Carson place. We're towards the middle of the street, so the whistling moves past us before fading away in the direction of the cul-de-sac. When I was younger, my sister and I would sneak into the kitchen some nights to listen. Mom and Dad didn't like that, and we'd catch hell if they found us out. But they were never too hard on us since we always stuck to the one big rule. Don't try to look at whatever was whistling. Let me take a sip of my drink. I haven't done that at all yet. All right. My neighborhood is a funny place. I've lived here since I was 6 and I love it. The houses are small but well kept. Good sized yards, plenty of places to roam. There are a lot of other kids here my age. I turned 13 back in October. We grew up together and would always play foursquare in the cul-de-sac or roam around from back porch to back porch in the summer. This was a good place to grow up. I'm old enough to see it. And there's only the two strange things here, the night whistling and the good luck. The whistling never bothered me much. Like I said, I couldn't even hear it from my bedroom. But Mom and Dad don't like talking about it, so I've stopped asking questions. My dad is a strong guy, tall and calm. He has an accent since he moved to the US as a kid. His family, my grandparents, they're from the islands. That's what they call it. My dad, the only time he isn't so calm is if the whistler comes up. He talks a little quicker then, eyes move faster, and he tells us not to think about it so much and to always remember the one rule, the big rule. Don't try to look outside when the whistler goes past. Not that we could look even if we wanted. See, there are shutters on the inside of every window, thick pieces of heavy canvas that pull down from the top and latch to the bottom of the window frame. Every latch even has a small lock about the size of what you'd find on a diary. My dad locks those shutters every night before we all go to bed and keeps the key in his room. My mom, I don't know what she thinks about the whistling. I've seen her out in the living room before at 3:03 when the sound starts. I could see her if I cracked my door open just an inch to peek. She's not out there often, at least I haven't caught her much, but once or twice a month, I think she sits out there on our big red couch just listening. The whistler has the same tune every night. It's cheerful. Da 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 dum da 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 dum. I honestly don't know how. You know what this reminds me of? Is that one meme of like the Tumblr post that went, "Hey guys, do you know what song? Like this is a song stuck in my head, and I want you guys to like figure out where it comes from." It kind of goes like, boom, bam, boom, bam, just types it out in like word form. All right. Remember how I said there are two odd things about where I live? Well, besides our night whistler, everyone in my neighborhood is really lucky. It's hard to explain, and Dad doesn't like us talking about this part much, either, but good things just seem to happen to people around here a lot. Usually it's small things, winning a radio contest, or getting an unexpected promotion at work, or finding some arrowheads buried in the yard, the authentic kind. The weather is pretty good, and there's no crime, and everybody's gardens bloom extra bright in the fall. A million little blessings, I've heard my mom say about living here. But the main reason we stay here, why we moved here in the first place, is my sister Nola. She was born very sick, something with her lungs. We couldn't even bring her home when she was born. only visit her in the hospital. She was so small, I remember. Small even compared to the other babies. A machine had to breathe for her. Well, that sucks. We moved into our house here to be closer to the hospital. As soon as we moved here, Nola started getting better. The doctors couldn't figure it out. They chalked it up to whatever they were doing, but we all could tell they were confused. But my parents knew. Even I knew. Nola was getting better, and Nola getting better was just another of the million little blessings we got for living in our neighborhood. So that's why we stayed even after we found out that for every small miracle that happens here every day, now and then, some bad things happen. But they only happen if you look for the Whistler. See, our neighborhood has a welcoming committee. They show up with macaroni casserole and a gift basket and a manila folder whenever someone new moves in. They're very friendly. 4 people showed up when we moved in 7 years ago. The committee made small talk, gave me a Snickers bar, and took turns holding Nola. It was her first week out of the hospital, and so they were extra careful. Then the committee asked to speak to my parents in private, so I was sent to my room where I still managed to hear nearly every word. The welcoming committee told my parents about how nice the neighborhood was, really exceptionally, hard to explain kind of nice. And then they told my parents about the even harder to explain whistling that happened every morning at 3:03 and ended at the tick of 3:05, so only 2 minutes. The group, our new neighbors, warned my parents that the whistling was quiet, would never harm or hurt us as long as we didn't look for what was making the sound. This part they stressed, and I pushed my ear into the door straining to hear them. People who went looking for the Whistler had their luck change, sometimes tragically. A black cloud would hang over anyone that looked. Anything could go wrong. Anything that could go wrong would. The manila envelope the committee brought over contained newspaper clippings, stories about car crashes and ruined lives, public deaths, and freak accidents. Not everyone dies, I heard the head of the committee tell my dad, but the life goes out of them. Even if they live, there's no light in them ever again. No presence. What is this Whistler? A leprechaun? It's like there's a pot of luck that this leprechaun's just throwing out at 3:03 to 3:05 through the neighborhood, and if you see, oh no, he's a very shy guy. This leprechaun's a very shy leprechaun. If you see him doing his magic work, he's gonna curse you with bad luck forever. My mom, I could tell, she wasn't taking it seriously. She kept asking if this was some prank they play on new neighbors. At one point, my mom got angry, accused the committee of trying to scare us out of our new home, asked them if they were racist on account of my dad being from the islands. My dad calmed her down, told her he could tell our new neighbors were sincere and they were just trying to help us. He explained that he grew up hearing these kinds of stories from his mom, and that he knew there were strange things that walked among us. Some of those strange things were good, and some were bad, but most were just different. After the committee left, Dad went out to the hardware store, bought the canvas blinds, the latches, and the locks, and installed them on every window in the house after dinner. That first night in our new house, I crept out of my room at 3 a.m., only to find my dad awake, sitting on the living room couch, holding my baby sister. My dad held up his finger in a shh motion, but patted the couch next to him. I sat and we waited. At exactly 3:03, we heard the whistling. Da-da-da, I'm kidding. It came and it went just like our neighbor said. The whistling returns each night and we never look, and we enjoy our million little blessings every day. Nola breathes on her own and she's grown into a strong, clever girl. My dad even joined the welcoming committee. We don't get new neighbors often. Why would anyone want to leave? But when a new family moves in, my dad and the committee bring them macaroni casserole, a gift basket, and the manila folder. I can always tell by the look on my dad's face when he comes back if the family took the committee seriously, or if we'd be getting new neighbors again very soon. Not long ago, a family moved in directly next to us. Oh no. The previous owner, Miss Maddie, passed away at the age of 105. Oh wow. Yeah, the leprechauns really do some work, huh? She lived a good, long life. Our new neighbors seemed like they'd fit in just fine. They believed the welcoming committee, took my dad's advice about the locking shutters since they had a young child of their own. Whatever newspaper clippings were in that manila envelope, whatever evidence, my dad never let us see. But I imagine it must have been awfully convincing since our neighbors got along with no issues for the first month. For the first month? Okay. One night. Oh, okay, here we go. We've gotten to the meat. When our new neighbors had to leave town, they sent their son, Holden, to stay with us. He's gonna die. He's so dead. Or at least he's gonna cause everyone to die. He was 12, a year under me in school. I didn't know him well before that night, but as soon as his parents dropped him off after dinner, I could tell it was going to be a bad time. Do you know who is always out there whistling every night? Holden asked the moment the adults left the room. The three of us were sitting in the den, some Disney movie playing idly on the television. My sister and I exchanged a glance. We don't talk about that, I said. I think it's that weirdo that lives in the big yellow house on the corner, Holden said. Mr. Tolles? My sister asked. No way, he's really nice. Holden shrugged. Must be a psycho killer then. Nola tensed. We don't talk about it, I repeated. Let's go in my room and play Nintendo. We spent the next few hours playing games, eating popcorn, and then watching movies. A typical sleepover, but I could see Holden was getting antsy. After my parents had wished us good night, locked the blinds, and gone to bed, Holden stood up from his beanbag and walked over where Nola and I were sitting on my bed. Have you ever tried looking? He asked. It's nearly time. Like most sleepovers, we'd conveniently ignored any suggestion of a bedtime. I was shocked to see he was right. It was almost 3 a.m. I sighed. We don't... See, I can't even try to look because my dad locks the blinds every night and hides the key, he continued, ignoring me. So does our dad, said Nola. No, replied Holden. No, he doesn't. You saw him do it, I said, a little sharper than I meant to sound. Holden grinned. Your dad locks the blinds, yeah, but he doesn't hide the key. He keeps it right on his normal keychain. So? I asked, worried I already knew what he would say next, because I had noticed that my dad didn't bother hiding the key anymore after all of these years, because he knew we took it seriously. So, after your dad locked up but your parents went to bed, I went to the bathroom, and on my way, I may have peeked into their room, and I may have seen your dad's keychain on his nightstand, and I maybe went and borrowed the key to blinds. Nola and I stared, and his grin only grew wider. You're lying, I said. Holden shrugged. You can check if you want. Just open your parents' door and look. You'll see his keychain right there on the nightstand. Stay here, I told both of them. Don't move a muscle. I hurried over to my parents' room but hesitated at the door. If Holden wasn't lying, my dad would be angry. Beyond angry. I was scared thinking about it. But more scared of an open window with the whistler right outside. I opened the door, barely an inch, and looked in, but it was too dark to see. Taking a deep breath, I walked into the room. 2 steps into the dark, I froze. The whistling started, and I could hear it clearly from my parents' room. I never realized, but they must have heard the sound every night since we moved into the house. They never told us. I don't think I could have slept through it. I stood there listening to the whistling come closer, unsure whether I should turn on a light or call out for my dad. Soft sounds from the living room brought me back to reality. Nola, I yelled, running out of my parents' room. Holden and Nola was standing near the front door next to a window. Holden wasn't lying. I could see him fumbling with the lock on one of the blinds. I heard a click. He did have the key. Holden let out a quick laugh. Nola stood next to him, hunched up, afraid, but maybe curious. The whistling was right outside our house now. I think I made a sound, called out. I can't remember. Time felt frozen, clock hands nailed to the face. But I found myself moving. I'm not fast. I've never been athletic. Somehow, though, I covered the space between myself and Nola in a moment. My eyes were locked on her, but I heard Holden pull the blind all the way down so it could release. I heard the snap of it start to raise, and I heard the whistling just on the other side of the window. But I had my arms around Nola, and I turned us so she was facing away from the window. At the same time, I jammed my eyes shut. The blind whipped open. The whistling stopped. I felt Nola shaking in my arms. "Don't look, okay?" I told her. "Don't turn around." We were positioned so that she was facing back towards the hallway and I was facing the window. My eyes were still closed. I felt her nod into my shoulder. I reached out with the arm not holding Nola and tried to touch Holden. My hand brushed against his arm. He was shaking worse than Nola. "Holden?" I asked. Silence. I reached past him and gingerly felt for the window, eyes still sealed shut. The glass was cold against my fingertips, colder than it should have been for that time of year. I moved my hand up the window, searching for the string to the blind. The glass began to get warmer the further I reached, and there was a gentle hum feeding back into my fingertips. I tried not to think about what might be on the other side of the window. Finally, I touched the string and yanked the blind shut. I opened my eyes. In the dim light leaking out from the kitchen, I could make out Holden, pale and small, staring at the now closed window. "Holden," I asked again. He turned towards me and he screamed. Everything became a flurry of motion. Lights sparked to life in the hall, then the living room. My parents' footsteps thundered across the hardwood floor. I didn't turn to look back at them. My eyes were glued to Holden. He was pale. He had bit his lips so hard there was a thin red line of blood running down his chin, and he'd wet himself. "What happened?" my dad asked from behind me. I managed to swivel away from Holden and look back. He looked. I had never seen my dad scared before, but I saw it that night. In that moment, an old, ugly terror stitched on his face. Appearance fear. "Just Holden?" he mouthed to me. I nodded yes. My dad let out a breath. He looked so relieved I nearly expected him to cheer. But then he turned to Holden and my dad's face changed. I wondered if he felt bad for feeling good that Holden was the only one that looked. There was a knock at the door. We all froze. Holden whimpered. "Don't answer it," my mom said. She stood at the threshold of the hall. I'd always thought she was a skeptic and just humored my dad about the windows and the whistler, but that night we were all believers. I noticed that both my parents held baseball bats they must have taken from their bedroom. The knock came again, a little louder this time. "Please don't open the door," Holden whispered. My dad walked over to him, hugged him close. "We won't," my dad promised, still holding his bat. "Nothing is coming in here tonight." Thud, thud, thud. This time the knocking was loud enough to rattle the door. Holden screamed again, and Nola clutched her arms around my neck. My mom came over and knelt down next to us, wrapping my sister and me close. Thud, thud, thud. "Call the police," my mom whispered to my dad. The knocking instantly stopped. My dad looked over his shoulder at us. Do you think he was cut off by frantic knocking that trailed off to a polite tap, tap, tap? "Police," something said from the other side of the door. The voice from outside sounded exactly like my mom, like a parrot repeating the words back to her. "Police, call. The police. Tap, tap, tap. Police." Mom pulled us closer. "Police, police, police, police." "Please stop," I heard her whisper. "I don't think calling them will help," my dad said. "How will we know when they're the ones at the door?" The knocking came back harder than before. The door shook. Then it stopped. After a long moment, I heard the knocking again, but it was coming from our back door. We all turned together towards the back door, but the knocking immediately returned to the front door. Front to back, back to front, loud, then quiet, then loud again. Suddenly, the sound was coming from both doors at once, big, heavy blows like a sledgehammer. Then, something started rapping against all of the windows in the house, then the walls. It was like we were living inside a drum, with a dozen people trying to play at once. Or we were a turtle and something was attempting to claw us out of our shell. "Stop!" Holden yelled. The knocking died. I won't tell, Holden said, staring at the door. I promise I won't tell anyone what I saw. Just please go away. We waited for nearly a minute. Then we heard it. A soft tap, 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 coming from the window Holden had looked through earlier. Holden started to cry, sobbing like a prisoner watching gallows being built outside their cell. My dad helped him, brushed his hair, but never lied to him, never told him things would be okay. The tapping at the window went on for the rest of the night. We huddled together in the living room for I don't know how long. Eventually, my mom tried to take us kids into my room while my dad stayed to watch the door. But the second we moved into my bedroom, the knocking came back so loud it was impossible to ignore. I was afraid the door wouldn't take it. We went back to the living room and the knocking stopped. Only the tap 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 on the window remained. None of us slept that night. Yeah, good. The tapping stopped around 7 a.m. That's about the time the sun comes up here. We waited another 2 hours before my dad opened the blinds from one window. He made us all go back to my parents' bedroom first. I heard him open the door, then come back in. Okay, he told us, it's done. Holden's parents came back around lunchtime. My mom and dad walked Holden over to his house and they all went inside for quite a while. Nola and I watched from the window. She stuck to me the whole day, right at my side, sometimes holding my hand. When my parents came back, they looked grim, but wouldn't tell us what they said to Holden's family. It was a Sunday, so we all spent the day together, ordered pizza, and watched movies. That night, everyone slept in my room. Nola and my mom in the bed with me, and my dad in a chair he'd pull over. There was no knocking that night or any night since. We didn't see much of Holden or his parents for the rest of that week, but by Thursday, there was a moving truck in their driveway. Yep. Nola and I watched them packing up the whole afternoon after school. What sticks with me the most is how tired Holden and his parents looked. All three had the same pallor, grim mouths, and lightless eyes. Even from across the street, I could tell something was very wrong. Holden and his family were gone before sunset. I remember what the original welcoming committee said to my parents when we moved in. Not everyone who looks at the Whistler dies, but even those that live have the light go out of them, and the rest of their lives are full of misfortune. A million little tragedies. I think Holden's parents must have looked, either to comfort him if they didn't believe, or share the burden if they did. I watched Nola some days, happy and young and alive, and I wonder if I'd been slower, if she'd looked out the window that night. Would I have looked too? To comfort her? To share that burden? I'm glad I don't have to find out. We still live in that house, in that neighborhood. We still hear our Whistler walking past every night. The blessings, the luck, the good things here are too good to leave. But we're careful. We don't have friends over to spend the night anymore. And my dad hides the key to the blinds very, very well. Not that I've gone looking. Some things you just don't need to look for. Ooh, that was a story. My mouth is so dry right now. Wow. Let me rehydrate. All right. I don't know if I can read two more. This was a very interesting story. Because this is I guess the themes of this are very like, it reminds me a bit of Eldritch stuff. But I mean, it's more so, it encapsulates a lot of what horror is. Fear of the unknown, and the whole idea that it's better not to look. It's better to be safe than sorry. It's very, like, conservative, because you know that if you step outside the bounds, you are going to suffer or die. You know, but the problem is the method in which you suffer or die is either unknown or just you don't, like, it's unknown. You don't know what happens to you, but you know the consequences, right? you know, like someone ends up dead or some, you know, like the light comes out of them or something. But we don't know how it happens. We know that if we step outside our boundaries, if you are a little too curious, if you're too adventurous, if you are a rule breaker, if you don't conform to the rules, you step outside of bounds, something horrible and unknown is gonna do something to you, and you're gonna be miserable or you're going to die. That's sort of how I view horror, right? Or at least that's the formula of what makes a general horror story. That's the same kind of deal you hear in, you know, folk tales and like those stories your parents would tell you when you were younger about, oh, you know, the stories that tell you to make sure that you sleep on time, you know, um, stuff like that. And yeah, the Whistler is an interesting idea. It's interesting because it also blesses everyone. It also blesses everyone. And so it's this really weird, like, it's this cool thing of if you ignore it, if you ignore this weird anomaly that shouldn't exist, this thing shouldn't exist, this thing is unknown and mysterious and dangerous, but if we turn a blind eye, we will benefit from this. But if we step outside of bounds, if we try and interact with this thing, we will suffer all the consequences. So this kind of story sort of like forces you into a box. And funny enough, that's exactly what happened. They were boxed into the house, and the tapping, the rap tap tapping kept coming from every angle. All the windows, all the doors. Yeah, real freaky stuff. Yeah, I can see why this is one of the top 3 most upvoted story of all time. Yeah, this thing's really cool. So, let's move on to our next story. This one is called My Sugar Daddy Asks Me for Weird Favors. Oh boy. This one could take a really weird turn or I don't know. All right. Right now I'm drinking a juice box. I have a glass of water with me, but I'm drinking this first. I also have a Kit Kat bar. Yeah. I'll eat it later. And just in case I want to nom on something while we're doing this. All right. Okay. My sugar daddy asked me for weird favors. His Tinder profile said he was 45, but he looked to be in his early 30s at most. Looking for a sugar baby. $700 weekly, no sex. Yo, that's a really good deal. What? 700 weekly? And no sex? Damn. It sounded too good to be true. But as a broke university student, I was willing to take my chances. I swiped right and Tinder let me know it was a match. His message came seconds later. Hey there, sweetheart. Smiley face. I cringed at that word. I hated it. But $700 was $700, so I sucked it up and replied, Hey. Winking smiley face. His name was Jack, and he told me he owned the business, although he never specified what kind of business it was. We talked for a while, and before he well, what the fuck, mate? We talked for a while before he asked me for my Venmo to send me the first payment. After a few minutes, I got the notification. I stared at the $700 for at least 20 minutes, expecting to wake up from a dream at any second, but it wasn't a dream. You still there? I clicked on the message. Yeah, sorry. If you don't mind me asking, what are you looking for in return? I stared at the chat until he replied. I'm just looking for you to do a few favors for me. Smiley face. That sounded like it was going to be sexual to me. Like what? For example, the first thing I need you to do is pick up a delivery for me. Well, that sounded innocent enough, but I was still expecting there to be some kind of twist. $700 to pick up a package? Come on, even I wasn't that naive. From the post office or something? No, I'll send you the address, but I'd rather not do this through Tinder. You got Kick? Or you can give me your number. Kick? What was this, 2011? I decided to give him my number instead, and he texted me the address immediately, followed by the address to his house, where I would have to drop off the package. I'm not home right now, but there's a key in the bottom of the blue flower pot near the door. Go inside and put the package on the coffee table in the living room. Make sure that you lock the door when you go inside the house, and then lock it again when you leave. I grabbed my car keys and wallet and got into my car, putting the address into Google Maps. Got it, on my way. My phone buzzed as I backed out of my driveway. I'm serious. Lock the door both times, please. I thought that was a little excessive, but I promised him that I would. The house looked abandoned. It had a broken chain link fence around it, with a small door that was hanging onto dear life. It stuck out like a sore thumb, surrounded by houses that were a lot nicer than this one in comparison. You here for Jack's shed? I looked up to see a man standing in the open doorway of the house. He took up almost the entire space, his head skimming the top of the doorframe. He was huge in height and muscles, and his entire torso was covered in tattoos. Yeah, I guess, I replied, not moving from my spot on the sidewalk. Stay right there, he said. I did. I actually don't think I would have moved if he had asked me to. I looked around and realized that there was no one else on the street. I was a 21-year-old woman alone on the street. Oh, wow. Hey, I am also a 21-year-old student. I wish I had a sugar daddy who would give me $700 a week. What the hell? A few minutes later, the man came back out carrying a cardboard box. Oh, I'm losing my ability to speak. It was about the size of a shoebox, but stained and damp on some of the corners. Can you open your car? He asked. I opened the trunk, not wanting that inside of my car's seats, and he set it in. Alright, there you go, he said. Thanks, I replied. I walked around to the driver's side of the car and opened the door. Oh, and one more thing, he said. I looked at him. Watch out, he said. I didn't reply. I blasted my music as I drove to Jack's house, hoping it would drown out my anxiety. It didn't. I parked my car in the stone driveway and stayed inside the car, admiring the house. It was a huge house, with stone pillars on the front porch, and the greenest grass I'd ever seen in my life. I turned the car off and got out. I grabbed the package and walked to the front door, getting the key from where he said it would be. I opened the door and stepped in, closing it behind me. I thought about what he had said, about locking the door when I got inside. I thought it was a little overboard, but as I stared at the closed door, something made me reach out and lock it. Eesh. I mean, I guess it's so that nothing gets out. It's the only logical explanation. I walked inside, my feet cushioned by the thick maroon carpet, and admired the inside of the house. All the furniture was wooden and looked incredibly expensive. I would probably finish school a dozen times with the money that it took to furnish this place. I set the package down on the coffee table, and as I walked back to the door, I heard a phone ringing from somewhere inside the house. I froze. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. I took it out to look. Don't answer any calls that aren't from Marvin. I put my phone back and followed the sound of the phone, poking my head into a few different rooms before I found it in an office. I walked over to the desk and looked at the caller ID. Incoming call from Jack. Oh, that's freaky. This is freaky. That was odd. Oh, you were not alone, dude. You were not alone. This is some like mimic shit, man. This is some doppelganger fucking. I don't know. It's some shapeshifting guy, man. It's the shapeshifters that get me the most, you know. Like when it comes to these kind of horror stories, it's they could be anyone, sort of like don't trust anyone sort of stories that like really freak me out. Oh my goodness. That was odd. I grabbed my phone to look at the message again. I was starting to get a little bit creeped out and decided I wouldn't answer just to be safe and left the house remembering to lock the door as I left. I've done a few more favors for Jack since then. I drove a BMW to a random park in another city, only to get out and drive a different car back to Jack's house. He had me meet one of his employees at lunch, who then gave me a briefcase to deliver to the first house I'd gone to and told me he would know if I looked inside. On several occasions, he asked me to drive down to that same house and stay with the guy, whose name was Julio, for a certain amount of time. In total, I've made around $3,500. Oh my god. Most recently, Jack had asked me to stay in his house overnight. I woke up to a text message from him. I need you to spend the night at my house. I hadn't ever seen him in person, but I had talked to him on the phone a few times. He proceeded to tell me he would pay me $1,000 to spend the night at his house, provided that I followed a few rules. Oh, here we go. Oh, hello, boy maid number one. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween. Yes, happy Halloween indeed. Although it is past midnight my time, so it's technically not Halloween anymore. That's okay. Halloween stream is Halloween stream. Oh my. Oh, why is it showing up like that on the let's see if I can change this. Oh man. This is scuffed. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. Why not? Fine, we'll just add that there. It's not a Zetsu stream if I don't do this. Alright. Anyway, where were we? Right, few rules. Cool. Oh, this is gonna be a rule-based story, isn't it? Alright. I drove to his house that evening. The driveway was empty, and it normally was, but the porch light was on. I walked up, unlocked the door, went inside, and locked it again. Everything in the house looked the same. Jack had told me over the phone that he would leave the list of rules on the dining room table. I set all my stuff down in the living room. My bags looked like garbage compared to the fancy furniture in there. I wandered into the kitchen and then to the dining room. Sure enough, there was a piece of paper on the wooden table held down by an empty glass. Lock the door when you come in. Okay, we know that one. Only answer calls from Marvin. We know that one too. Don't turn on any faucets between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. Sure. Don't open the door for anyone, no matter who they say they are, after 10 p.m. That's gonna be a thing. Guaranteed there's gonna be a police officer. If the door to the closet at the end of the hall is open, sleep in the library. If closed, sleep in any of the bedrooms. Is there something in the closet? Or is it... Why? The gardener comes at midnight. If he starts knocking on the windows, hide. What the fuck? Okay, turn the TV on and let it play static through the night. Do not forget to do this. We're gonna forget to do this. Help yourself to anything in the fridge. I'll pay you in the morning. Good night. Ugh. Okay. Well, that's fun. What would you do if you saw something like this? You're like, all right, I'll pay you $1,000 to stay overnight in my house, but just do all these rules. And you see this, Like, would you would you do this for $1,000? I don't know if I would, to be honest, because I'd be way too paranoid of like, what if I break any of these rules? What would happen? I don't know. Yeah. What would happen if it goes wrong? What if you don't hide? What if you don't hide and the gardener sees you? What if you don't sleep in the library? What if you sleep in the bedroom so the door to the closet at the end of the hall is open? Like, what does that mean? I just want to know what does this mean for any of this? And the static, like, ugh, yeah, no, I mean, $1,000 is $1,000. Man, I'm black. It's stupid. I know it's like a meme where, oh man, the black guy always dies first in horror movies, and then everyone's like, no, the black guy would be out of the horror movie at the first sign of like a haunting. And I think that's like the funniest thing. Okay, I made sure to follow all the rules. To be honest, I was regretting my decision. Yeah, me too. But seeing as I was already here and I was getting paid, I decided to stay anyway. I figured as long as I followed all the rules, I'd be perfectly fine. Still, it felt a little odd. What was this, a haunted house? Nevertheless, I lounged around the house for a few hours as I was planning on going to sleep around 9 since that's the time all that weird shit would begin to happen. At 8:50, I brushed my teeth using the faucet for the last time before 9. I checked the closet in the hallway, and upon seeing that it was open, I moved my stuff into the library and got ready to sleep on the couch. I locked the doors just in case and laid on the couch, scrolling through my phone. I hadn't gotten more messages from Jack, and I started to think up scenarios and reasons as to why he had such strict, peculiar sets of rules in his house. I had dozed off at some point because at exactly 10:16 p.m., I was woken up by the doorbell ringing. I was about to get up to check, but then I remembered the rule. Don't open the door for anyone, no matter who they say they are, after 10 p.m. I stayed on the couch, trying not to move, paranoid that they would hear even the slightest sound. It's the police! Open up! I told you, it's always the police. I didn't move. Hello? It's the police! Open up or we're coming in! I still didn't move, but I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. There was silence for a while after that. Then the doorbell rang again. Hey, it's Jack. Let me in. It sounded like Jack, but still I didn't get up. He would have a key, wouldn't he? Why would he need me to let him in? Ooh. This continued for almost a full hour. Different people would ring the doorbell, announce themselves, and then disappear when I didn't respond. Nah, man, nah. If it was just the police, or maybe Jack and the police, I would kind of be like, should I? If it's multiple people doing the gauntlet of, hey, it's me. Oh, hey, no, it's me, actually. Let me in. No, it's me. Let me in. I would be like so freaked out at that point. I mean, what kind of mimic is trying to get in right now? That is crazy. I was finally able to fall asleep, and the gardener never came. When I woke up the next morning, I heard someone in the kitchen. In the kitchen? Wait, what? I got up slowly and unlocked the door as quietly as possible, taking my phone with me and walking across the living room and into the kitchen. I stopped at the entrance and peered in. It was Jack. He was standing in front of the stove, stirring something as the coffee machine brewed coffee on the counter behind him. Door creaks. What the fuck is that? Oh, that was the sound of me leaving because you... Yep. Hey, good morning, he said when he saw me. Hi, I replied, nervous. I hadn't seen him in person before, but he looked exactly like his pictures online. Scrambled eggs? He asked, motioning to the pan with a wooden spoon. Yeah, thanks, I replied, walking over to take the plate from him. I ate my breakfast and drank some coffee in silence. So, how was it? He asked. It was okay. Nothing super freaky happened, I replied. Cool, he replied. There was an awkwardness in the room. I think I'm gonna go now. I have class. I chilled off. I didn't, but I really wanted to get out of there. Oh no, yeah, sure, I'll talk to you some other time, he replied. I grabbed my stuff and he walked me to my car. I could see him standing in the driveway staring at me as I left. Oh, when I got home, I unpacked all my stuff and noticed that I still had the list with me. I sat on the bed and read it again. I felt my body tense up as I realized that I had forgotten something. Turn on the TV and let it play static through the night. Do not forget to do this. Turn on the TV and let it play static through the night. Do not forget to do this. Do not forget to do this. I told you. I told you we'd forget to do this. I forgot. Actually, I totally forgot about that. Wait, but also, didn't we not? Did we lock the door after we left? I mean, I know Jack was there, but was that really Jack? I mean, I don't know. It could also be something else. You know what I'm saying? All right. I stared at the words on the page until they lost meaning. Beside me, my phone buzzed, snapping me back to reality. It was $1,000 payment. I looked at my phone and then back at the list. Maybe it wasn't an important step. Oh, you're coping at that point. Oh, you're coping. As I was thinking this over, a text from Jack came in. I'm not in town right now. Oh no, it wasn't. Oh no, that is freaky. I should be back next week, so you're free from running any more errands for me until then. Just send the payment. Go do something fun. Smiley face. I stared at the message and I read it again and again and once more for good measure. I'm not in town right now. I thought back to this morning and how Jack was in his house, how he gave me breakfast. I'm not in town right now. Within minutes, a new text came in this time from a number that I didn't recognize. Did you forget to do something? Winky face, smiley face. The text was followed by a picture of Jack, or whoever this version of Jack was, standing in front of the TV. I didn't respond. Next came another picture. This one was of the outside of my house. It was followed by another text. Watch out. Yeah, that's on you. See, this wouldn't have happened if you didn't take the job. I'm sorry. Come inside this house and I'm burning it down to both of us inside. Five Nights at Freddy's style. Yeah, this guy's this purple guy, man. Okay, this one is way better than the last one. The last one was cool. It didn't freak me out, but I could see how it was freaky. This one, oh, this one's a... Yeah, like I said, one of the things that freak me out are like weird mimic doppelganger people. That's why the Mandela catalog freaks me out. That's why any story about like, ooh, do not trust anyone really freak me out. I don't know why. Yeah, it's $1,000 is $1,000. What can I say? The smile virus scared. The smile virus. I feel like I've seen that before. I think I've seen like this. Weren't they I've seen like stick figure animations of it, I think. But not sure if that's it or like fan stuff. But just seeing the words the smile virus, yeah, I don't want anything to do with it. No, no, thank you. What was that movie that came out like a few months ago? It was like the one of the smile. Is it analog? Of course. Yeah, yeah. It was like the smiling thing. I don't remember what it was called. But the whole movie was like about creepy smiling people, and it was creepy. Yeah, smiling people are weird too. Smiling people are weird too. Ugh, let me rest my voice for a bit. We have one more story to read from the top of all time, and then we get to play this weird mystery game that I've teased in the title. Ooh. So yeah, let me just put this out and get this out. Wow, I'm on a bigger screen now. Magic. So how's Halloween going, guys? I mean, I don't personally celebrate it like in my area, but yeah, I'm just having a blast. Also, I'm just taking a break because my eyes are like acting up. If you didn't know, yeah, I don't think I haven't told anyone outside of like my Discord and my Patreon, but I went for like an eye surgery like just over a month ago. Um, it's not LASIK. It's like a sister to LASIK. So LASIK would like trim, I guess, like thin down like your cornea or something. You like permanently just slice, like laser a part of your eye off and like make it sharper, I guess. But what I got was an ICL, which is a way more expensive version of it, but no permanent stuff involved, just making like a slit and just sliding in like some basically something like contact lenses. So you just put in lenses in this like in between like parts of my eye, and I can see without glasses now, so I'm not wearing glasses anymore. Yay! I'm not a nerd. But I've been recovering since then. It's really annoying. Um for the most part I'm recovered. For the most part. I even went out and watched the FNAF movie just the other day. But I keep running into this problem where I think I'm straining my eyes too much sometimes because it'd start getting like really itchy and I'd start like tearing up a lot. Yeah, I made sure to like rest my eyes before stream, but it's happening again, so I'm just shutting my eyes and yeah, resting up before we continue. Yeah, apparently if you were near them you wouldn't know because they were dead silent. They said with presumably a straight face, stay away from alleys, like anyone went near them in the first place. Oh. Glasses are cute though. They are. That's why I wanted to get like sunglasses. That's what I wanted to get, like cute like sunglasses to wear as like fashion, and partly to protect my eyes. Sounds rough. Hope it's not that bad. Yeah, it's not that bad actually. It went surprisingly well. I'd watched like some YouTube videos on what I should expect in the recovery phase, and also what goes on during the surgery. That freaked me out. Okay, look, I don't know if you guys are squeamish, but I have seen some really fucked up stuff on the internet. Okay, I've been desensitized at like really fucked up stuff on the internet, but when it comes to certain body parts and surgery on them, it whoa, I get so lightheaded and squeamish. And I've never had a reaction so bad than watching a video of how the surgery is supposed to go. And I felt so lightheaded that I had to lay down. I think I genuinely nearly passed out because I was so squeamish. And also knowing that, hey, this is gonna be me in like a week. That thing like freaked me out. I think it got a bigger reaction out of me than any of the horror stories that we read so far tonight. But yeah, it's not that bad. I actually recovered pretty well. It's just I still run into some issues, and it's pretty normal. But it should be fine in like a few months, I think. Yeah. All right. So we have one more story today. Let's just pull that up. Window capture image. Yay, I know how to OBS. So I picked the top 3 of all time on the subreddit, but I didn't order them based on what was the actual top of all time. It's in slightly different order. The reason is I read the titles. I read the titles of all 3 and I decided, okay, what's a scarier title? And by far, this wasn't the top post. I think this was second. But this title freaked me out the most, so I'm saving it for last. This title, my wife has been peeking at me from around corners and behind furniture. It's gone from weird to terrifying. I don't know about you, but that concept is absolutely terrifying. Sure, weird Whistler comes out and gives you bad luck at 3:03 a.m. Sure, my sugar daddy is weird and paid me $1,000 to sleep at his house, and there's weird rules, and I forgot to do it. There's a weird mimic. Cool. My wife is staring at me from around corners and it's terrifying. Okay, I'm stalling. I'm just stalling. I don't know. I don't know about this one. Cause I'm not gonna sleep yet after this stream. So I'm worried I'm gonna start seeing things around corners. This is like the worst part about experiencing horror stuff. It's that it's not watching the horror movie, it's not reading the horror story. It's, hey, can I sleep tonight? Am I gonna imagine things? Is my brain gonna be weird again? That's the worst part. All right, I'm prepared. I'm prepared. No, I'm not. But what could I do? Make sure to hydrate. I might as well just finish that off. All right. Okay. Oh, it's a series. What is that? My wife Lynn and I have been together for 6 years and married for 11 months. Our entire history together has been very normal, and never once have I noticed any weird behaviors or red flags. I can't stress enough how out of character this whole thing is for her. Lynn is very kind, intelligent, and thoughtful. She's always been the no-nonsense type of person. Being childish or trying to scare me is not something she'd normally do. She doesn't even like watching horror movies. When we first started dating, she agreed to watch The Shining with me because she knew how much I loved horror. She was so scared that she didn't even make it through the half of the movie before we had to turn it off. She isn't into anything creepy and has never been into pranks. It's just not her cup of tea, and that's fine. But that's what's so strange about this. It's just so unlike her. Okay, maybe it's not her. I'm just saying. We had the Jack situation just now. That wasn't Jack. It looked like Jack, but it wasn't. Lynn might not be your wife, man. I don't know. I should also add that she never had any mental health issues, and as far as I'm aware, it doesn't run in the family. I know some people are able to hide their mental health problems, but in the 6 years we've been together, I think I'd have seen some sort of sign. Yeah, 6 years is a long time. 2 months ago, I was in the kitchen making myself some coffee before work. I was running a bit late that morning and knew I wouldn't be able to make it to Dunkin' Donuts for my usual morning fix. I took a sip of my coffee as I hurried down the hall towards the front door when I happened to notice Lynn peeking at me from around the corner ahead of me. I could only see her eyes and a strand of her long, dark hair hanging against the wall. The rest of her body was concealed behind the corner. I nearly spilled my coffee when I saw her. I did burn the shit out of my lips. "Jeez, Lynn," I said, wiping a few drops of coffee from my pants. "You scared the shit out of me." She immediately popped out of view like a little kid that had been caught. I heard her scurry off towards the living room, and by the time I got to the front door, she was out of sight. It was really weird and just totally out of character for her, like I said, but I also found it kind of funny that she was being more playful and a little less serious. I shouted that I loved her and called her a weirdo. As I shut the door behind me, I heard her laughing. Her behavior was a bit odd, but it certainly wasn't something to call the priest over. I forgot about it by lunch, and by the time I got home, she was her normal self. I didn't bring it up, and neither did she, and life went on. The next incident happened 3 days later. It was around 2 a.m., and I had woken up to get a drink. I was standing in the kitchen aisle, jug of, I don't know what that is, in hand, when I felt a strong feeling that I was being watched. For whatever reason, I looked down at the floor and saw my wife's smiling face staring back. She was peeking at me from the other side of the island, staring up at me with wide, unblinking eyes and grinning like a Cheshire cat. I screamed. I'll admit it, not out of irritation, but fear. For some reason, at that moment, I was scared. Yeah, I mean, gotta be honest, if I went out of bed, 2 a.m., grab a drink, and I'm just there, I'm just drinking, and like, oh man, I'm sleepy, I'm just getting a drink, and I see a fucking face around the corner, smiling at me. I don't care if 10 seconds later I realize, oh no, it's just my wife. Bruh, in that second, I'd be creaming. I'd be, no, creaming is the right word. I'd be pissing. I'd be pissing my pants. Jeez. Okay. Now I'm worried. Now I'm worried that later, when I'm gonna get a drink at 2 a.m., I'm gonna see something. See, this is the problem. This is why I didn't want to read this shit. Okay. No, keep reading, keep reading. At the sound of my scream, Lynn scuttled backwards out of my view, her hands and feet smacking the tile floor as she hurried out of the kitchen on all fours. On all fours? Brother, my man, your wife is possessed. Bring a priest. I didn't run after her or even yell after her. I just stood there frozen in shock, wondering what the fuck had possessed her to do that. It took me a little longer than I'd like to admit to go back upstairs, but I eventually did. When I got into our bedroom, Lynn was lying on her side, asleep. Or at least pretending to be. I stood there for a while, watching her breathing to be sure she was really asleep. I had the feeling she might jump out at me the moment I got into bed, but she didn't. I climbed into bed and she didn't even move. Her breathing was soft and deep, and I was starting to wonder if I'd dreamt the whole thing. The next morning, I waited for her to come down for coffee, and after handing her a mug and kissing her cheek, I decided to ask her about it. What was that about last night? I asked, keeping my tone light so I didn't offend or embarrass her. She frowned over her cup of coffee, shaking her head like she had no clue what I was referring to. You were peeking at me again, from over there, I said, pointing to the spot on the floor by the kitchen island. She followed my gaze, and when she looked back at me, she burst out laughing. She laughed so hard that I couldn't help but join her. You creep me the fuck out sometimes, you know that? I said. She giggled and set her cup on the counter and wrapped her arms around my neck. You creep me out all the time, so I guess we're even, she teased. We said our goodbyes and left for work. As I drove, I kept thinking about how creepy it's been seeing her grinning at me from behind the island like that. The sounds her hands made on the floor as she crawled away. I told myself she was trying to be silly, or just trying to join me in my love of all things horror. It's not like I was afraid of her, but it still didn't sit right with me. I started seeing her peeking at me more and more. Sometimes she'd be peeking out from behind the couch, or living room curtains. Once, she even managed to get inside her grandmother's old trunk that sits in the foot of our bed. What the hell? I might not have even known she was there at all had the trunk's old hinges not given her away. She'd had the lid popped up just enough so that only half of her face peeked through. She'd been grinning like an excited toddler. It was unnerving. I didn't even know what to say to her. All I could do was stare. When I finally found my voice, I had asked her why on earth she was doing this. She didn't answer, but she had slowly closed the lid, shutting herself inside the trunk. I just walked away, feeling disturbed. I didn't understand why she was doing it, but it clearly made her happy. I just hoped she would get tired of this game quickly. Lynn didn't peek at me for the next 2 weeks. Okay, I started to think she was done with her weird prank, and I was relieved. We were watching a show on Netflix one night, and I jokingly said that I hadn't seen her peeking at me lately, and that she must have given up on her spy game. She looked up at me with a small smile and said, "Maybe you've just gotten better at it." No! No! What the heck? No. That's worse. That's worse. You shouldn't have asked. I'd rather live in ignorant bliss, thinking that she'd stop her game. Honestly, right? What are the chances? If she's gotten that good at it, what are the chances of you even finding her? Right? But now that you know, now that you know that this is, what if I don't, what if I'm not seeing her? What if she is looking at me? What if I'm not seeing it? Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. Where was I? I didn't say anything, but I wondered whether or not she was joking. For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. Was she still peeking at me when I wasn't looking? and I just hadn't noticed. And if so, what the hell was she getting out of this? I started to feel paranoid, constantly checking whether she was watching from around the corner or behind a door. I was jumpy whenever I was home and she wasn't in full view of me. I felt stupid and a little crazy. But after a few weeks without another incident, I began to relax. I stopped checking behind furniture and walls and told myself it was just a bad memory. Then, a few days ago, things got so much worse. Lynn left to go to a friend's, and I lounged on the couch and played a couple of games on my laptop. Around 9 p.m., I hopped in the shower, and as I was washing the soap from my hair, I felt that awful feeling that I was being watched. I slowly opened my eyes and almost had a fucking heart attack. Lynn was speaking from behind the shower curtain, her entire head stretched into the shower, leaving just her body outside. Her long dark hair hung against the curtain, the ends dripping with water. Her mouth hung open in a terrible grin, eyes wide and red as if she hadn't blinked in a while. I screamed and jumped back against the wall. She didn't move, nor did her smile waver. Her makeup ran down her cheeks in 2 black streaks. She looked giddy and completely deranged. I was fucking terrified. Holy shit, not the shower, what the hell? Dude, it's worse because you think she's gone. It's weird because you think you're alone. You're not expecting to see shit like that, right? At least if Lynn was in the house, he'd be like paranoid of being like, okay, well, if I open my eyes, like, will I see her? No, it's like, okay, she's gone from the house. She's at her friend's. Right? I'm just in the shower. And then you just feel like, I shouldn't be closing my eyes right now. You open your eyes and that shit's there. Fuck. Yeah, I'm not taking a shower today. I don't want to do that anymore. We stood like that for a few moments, neither of us saying a word. Finally, after what felt like forever, she slowly pulled her head back out of the shower, and I watched her blurry figure through the curtain as she moved backwards towards the bathroom door. Oh man. A second later, the bathroom door slammed shut, hard enough to rattle the mirror. I screamed again and jumped out of the shower to lock the door. I stayed inside the bathroom for over an hour. Maybe I overreacted to some of you, but joke or not, I wasn't going to put up with the crazy shit anymore. That's what I kept telling myself as I paced in my bathroom, stopping to listen at the door every few minutes. Suddenly, I heard a muffled sound, and I pressed my ear against the bathroom door, straining to listen. I couldn't hear anything, but I envisioned Lynn standing on the other side of the door, giggling at her joke. I felt a surge of anger. I was beyond pissed at being made to feel scared in my own house, and made to hide in the bathroom for an hour. All for what? Some joke? If it was a joke, it was an awful one. What the fuck, Lynn? I snapped. This shit is getting really fucking annoying. I waited for her to apologize or to call me a jerk, but instead I heard a faint moan. So quiet, I wondered if I heard it at all. And then complete silence. Lynn? I called out, not able to even hide the shakiness in my voice. I got no response, just my own heavy breathing. I swear to God, just fucking stop it, I yelled, pounding my fist on the door. I waited for her to cuss me out, something I would expect from me talking to her like that. I never screamed at her before. But there was nothing, just the occasional drip from the shower head. I won't deny that I was scared, too afraid to open the damn door and face my own wife. I waited another 30 minutes or so, which feels like a fucking lifetime when you're scared. Finally, I decided I wasn't going to spend the night hiding in my bathroom. So, I got down on my knees and peered under the door. I almost expected to see her face peeking back at me, but thankfully I didn't. I could see straight down the hallway to the top of the stairs, but no Lynn. I didn't know if I should be happy about that or not. I looked for a few minutes, waiting to see her head pop out over the top step, but it never came. I stood up, my hand hovering over the door, and mentally prepped myself to open it. I slowly turned the lock with shaky fingers and was about to yank it open when I heard a sound that still makes me nauseous when I think about it. A moan louder than before, but this time I was able to tell just where it was coming from. I turned my head to the closet door, as if in slow motion, and locked eyes with my wife, who was peeking out at me from the slight gap. Her eyes were still wide as ever, and her mouth was hanging open in the most grotesque, gaping smile I'd ever seen. I didn't even scream. I was too scared for even that. Her hands were clasped to her chest, body trembling with sheer delight as if she could barely contain her excitement. A short, raspy moan bubbled up from her throat, deep and raw, sending a shiver through my entire body. Somehow I felt the ability to pull the bathroom door open and ran as fast as I could all the way down the steps, snagging my keys and phone from the table in the living room before running outside to my car. I could hear her shrill laughter behind me, but I didn't hear her getting closer. I didn't bother shutting the front door. I drove away from the house faster than I legally should have, shivering the entire time, either from fear or the cold. Maybe a little of both. I hadn't grabbed a coat or even a pair of shoes. I was still in my boxers and my hair was still damp. I mean, to be fair, if you're scared shitless to that extent, you've holed yourself up in the bathroom for an hour, and then you get another heart attack, I think you're out. I don't know if I would have ran, but I mean, I haven't been in a circumstance where I'm that creeped out and jumpy at everything in my house. And again, this comes back to the theme of you can't trust people that you think you can trust because they're not themselves, right? It's the mimic thing. It's the that's not really them thing. Maybe they're possessed. You know, that's why it's freaky. It's freaky. I drove straight to my brother Chris's house about 40 minutes away, ignoring any and every call and text I got. I didn't check my phone until I was safely parked in my brother's driveway. Lynn had called 4 times and sent a flurry of texts, all wondering where I'd gone and why I left like that. I threw my phone at the dash in a rage, furious at her nonchalant attitude. My brother and his wife were surprised to see me, especially dressed in just a pair of boxers, but told me to stay as long as I needed. Chris lent me some clothes and asked me what happened. I told him Lynn and I had a fight, but didn't get into the details. I didn't want him to think I was overreacting, leaving my wife for a prank, even if it was a strange one. I mean, hadn't I encouraged her for years to lighten up instead of being so serious all the time? I had wanted her to relax and loosen up, but this was definitely not what I'd had in mind. I tried to sleep on the sofa, but my brain wouldn't let me sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lynn's face staring at me from inside the closet. Knowing she'd been there with me the entire time made my skin crawl. She'd never left the fucking bathroom at all. Instead, she slipped inside the closet and slammed the bathroom door shut to fool me. Dude, that is so... I just realized what happened. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he was in the closet. Sorry, he was in the bathroom. There was a closet in there. While he was still showering, he expected her to still be there. Or something. No. Yeah, she shut the door thinking she'd left, but she actually hid herself in the closet. And he stayed in there. He stayed in there for an hour thinking she's outside, but he couldn't find her. And then he just sees her staring at him. Oh my god, that feeling of I'm not in your sight, but I've been here the entire time. It's so fucking freaky, dude. Ah. Yeah, I'm gonna be so paranoid, just checking the room and be like, okay, I know for a fact that nobody's in here, but is anybody here? Oh my god. The mere thought of going back home nearly gave me anxiety. I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Chris ended up giving me a sleeping pill, so I was able to get a little rest. My sleep was filled with terrible dreams, all of Lynn's smiling face. I woke up just as the sun started to rise. My sore body ached from the sofa, and I felt drained. I knew I'd have to call Lynn at some point, but I didn't know what to say to her. I wouldn't be going home unless she gave me her word she'd never do any more creepy shit. I just wanted my wife back. Her normal, serious self never looked so good to me. I was contemplating calling her and telling her that when that familiar feeling came over me. I was being watched. I was staring at the ceiling, my heart in my throat. I didn't want to look away, but the longer I ignored the feeling, the worse it got. My eyes drifted away from the ceiling, almost on their own. Her face was pressed up against the window beside the couch, staring down at me with that same keeping smile. Drool dribbled down her lips, leaving 2 long streaks down the glass. I didn't know how long she'd been there, but something told me she'd been there for quite a while, possibly all night. I didn't bother screaming, though I was afraid anger trumped my fear I felt at that moment. I jumped up from the couch and pounded my palm against the glass. "Lynn, are you crazy? What the hell is wrong with you? Just go home," I shouted. "Now!" She didn't move, and her ghastly expression never changed. If anything, her smile only grew, as if she'd never been more elated. I think she's playing hide and seek. Like, she's not satisfied until you find her. You know what I mean? It's like, sure, she may have gotten better at it, but it's no fun when you're never found. Sure, there's some amusement to be had when you're just watching someone not be able to find you, but seeing someone just terrified, I don't know. I feel like she's messing with him. I could hear Chris and his wife moving around upstairs. As if Lynn could hear them from her place outside, her head twitched slightly in their direction, and she began to close her mouth slowly. Chris called my name from upstairs, obviously concerned. I turned to see him and his wife Rebecca hurrying down the steps. When I turned back to the window, Lynn was gone. The only sign she'd been there at all was 2 streaks of drool still dripping from the glass. I tried explaining to Chris and Rebecca about waking up to see Lynn watching me through their window. They were skeptical. I mean, who wouldn't be? Chris and I went outside to the spot in front of the window, but there were no footprints in the dirt, just a slight indent. Animal, probably, Chris guessed, and I didn't argue. He and Rebecca assumed I dreamt the entire episode, but they didn't understand, and I was too tired to explain it to them. I called out of work that day and turned my cell off. I didn't want to face Lynn. Just talking to her was too much for me at that point. I really started to believe that something was irreversibly wrong with her. That no matter what promises she made, we'd never be the same again. The thought saddened me to my core. I cried most of the morning. Yeah, I mean, it's like a different person, right? Than the person you loved for 6 years. Just gone like that, you know, replaced by some weird creature. It's sad. By noon, I figured I was ready to confront her, give her one last chance to explain herself. I could at least give her that after 6 years, I told myself. I turned my phone on and saw the dozens of texts she'd sent, all from a seemingly concerned wife. "Can we talk? I love you. Please call me. I'm really worried. Can you answer? Just come home." And more of the same. All texts telling me she loved me, and she wanted me home. How worried she was. Not a damn one addressing the crazy shit she pulled, like she hadn't been acting like a character from a Stephen King book. Even her texts were different. She normally texted novels just to tell me to pick up a loaf of bread. You'd think she'd have more to say to me after her bizarre shenanigans. I know it probably seems childish to some of you who are miles away from the situation, but if you saw the way Lynn had looked at me, how she scampered away on all fours like some wild animal, grinning at me from inside the closet like a lunatic, then I think you'd find my reaction warranted. I think you're right. I don't have that experience, and I hope I never get that experience. No, I ended up staying with Chris and Rebecca for another night. I didn't wake up yesterday until afternoon, and thankfully I didn't see Lynn's face watching me through the window. I don't want to pry because it's not my place. But is this fight something that can be mended? Rebecca asked. She'd made us both a sandwich for lunch, and I knew she wanted to breach the subject without seeming to be nosy. I don't know, she's like a different person, I said, choosing my words carefully. I still wasn't ready for her or Chris to know the full extent of the batshit craziness I'd been dealing with. People change, Ben. But she's still the same woman you married. Maybe you both just need to talk through your issues. Whatever's going on, I'm sure it can be fixed. she said, ever the peacemaker. I think it's beyond that now. I don't think talking would help. I just don't trust her, I said. The words stung in my heart. I missed and loved my wife. But how could I live with someone like that? Living in constant fear didn't sound too appealing. Lynn loves you. She has to be absolutely crushed, she said. I don't know about that, I said. Well, she certainly seemed like it to me. I've never seen her so upset. Very much unlike the Lynn I know, Rebecca said, shaking her head sadly. It took a full minute for her words to really sink in, and when they did, I felt dread worming its way through my skin. Wait, what do you mean? You saw her? You saw Lynn? I asked, my mouth suddenly dry. Rebecca nodded casually, as if that fact wasn't nightmare fuel. Maybe for her it wasn't. She stopped by this morning just after Chris left for work, she said, cleaning the plates on the table. I didn't see her car, though. Maybe she took an Uber or something. Beck? What did she say? Did she come inside? I asked, sweat starting to break out of my forehead. I began looking around, examining corners as though a predator lurked behind them. No, she just asked if you were awake yet, and I said that you weren't. I asked if she wanted me to wake you, but she said no. Just said to let you sleep, she said as she washed the dishes. Sorry, give me a moment. That's all? She didn't see anything else? I asked. No, she looked awful though, like she hadn't slept in days. I think I should call her. I got up from the table and thanked Rebecca for lunch. I felt a little bit better at the knowledge that at least she hadn't come inside. Still, I needed to double check that the doors were locked. I sat for a while trying to figure out what to do next. I didn't want to go home, but I felt that I owed it to Lynn to help her if I could. Hadn't I sworn an oath to love her and honor her through sickness and in health? Clearly, she was very sick. If she was sick, which I truly believe she was, I had to try and get her the help she needed. But I didn't know where to start. I didn't want to call the police, and besides, what the hell was I going to tell them? That my wife was peeking at me? That she was being creepy? As bizarre as she'd been, she still hadn't committed any crime. Not yet, anyway. The police would have probably said that I was overreacting, but this wasn't some prank. It felt wrong, dangerous even, like something sinister lurked beneath her smile. I knew as her husband I was well within my rights to have her committed, but what if she simply acted normal in their presence? She'd obviously been able to fool Rebecca into thinking she was just a concerned wife. As long as the doctors didn't find her a danger to herself or others, they'd have no choice but to release her after 72 hours. I felt so lost and overwhelmed. So I did what any husband in my position would do. I called my mother. I didn't want to, believe me. I called her mother. I didn't want to, believe me. Her mother, Marianne, and I were never on the best of terms. We never fought or anything like that. She just wasn't a very warm person, and wasn't really easy to get along. She hardly ever smiled, and when she did, only her lips would move into a thin-lipped smile, leaving her eyes as blank as before. She gave off this aura that felt like she was permanently on the offensive. I'd only met her twice, and both times were for such a short visit. I got the impression she didn't approve of me for her daughter. Lynn always ushered us out quickly, as she didn't want me to feel uncomfortable, which I was grateful for. Being in her mother's company felt almost unbearable, like walking on glass. I was glad when we moved 3 states away so we didn't have to see her often. I was happy to avoid the woman, but I needed her help. I really didn't want to talk to her at all, but I had to talk to someone, and someone who knew Lynn better than I did, so I grit my teeth and did what I had to do. Yes, she answered, already sounding irritated. Marianne, it's me, Ben. Do you have a minute to talk? I asked. I could hear her cluck her tongue in irritation. I'm in the middle of writing some checks, but if you insist, I suppose I can spare a moment. What is it that you want to discuss, Benjamin? She said, coolly. It's about Lynn. She's been acting strangely, and I was wondering if you had any idea whether there was something... I was quickly interrupted. It's a bit difficult to follow your rambling, Benjamin. What is it that you want from me? She asked. I could almost see her standing there in her thin sweater and slacks, tapping her fingernails impatiently on the table. I wanted to know if you'd ever noticed any odd behavior, or possibly any mental health issues, I asked. There's a long, uncomfortable pause that I couldn't tell was because she was thinking or something else. Finally, after a few seconds, she spoke. I'm not sure if this is one of your jokes, Benjamin, but if so, I don't find the humor in it. Now, I do have business to attend to, as I've said, so if you don't mind, she said, but I cut her off before she could get rid of me. Marianne is not a joke. I'm sincerely concerned about Lynn's mental health. Her behavior has been very erratic lately. I'm very worried about her, and I figured as her mother you would be as well. I said, my frustration evidenced in my voice. If you're truly concerned, then I suggest you get the health professionals involved. I don't know what you expect of me, she snapped. I could tell she was seconds away from hanging up, and for some reason I was desperate not to let her. I had the feeling that she knew a lot more than she was letting on. Please, if not for me, do it for Lynn, I said. I heard a faint, shaky intake of breath as she was trying to hold her steely persona together, but failing. Marianne, what's wrong? I started. Benjamin, I don't know what to tell you. My only advice would be to seek professional help. Do not call here again. Goodbye. I tried to call out to her, but she'd hung up. I tried to wrap my head around the call and her refusal to help me. Even if she didn't like me, why would she want to help? Why wouldn't she want to help her own daughter? I couldn't understand that. I tried to replay the conversation, desperate to find something I missed. After a while, I almost gave up until I remembered her last words to me. Seek professional help. She said those words with a bit of urgency. I could have just been grasping at straws, but no, I was sure her voice had changed ever so slightly when she said that, as if they were very important. What had she meant? I assumed she'd been referring to medical professionals, but maybe she was referring to someone else, someone that she didn't for some reason feel comfortable saying directly. Or maybe I was just desperate. Nah, I think you're desperate, man. I waited for Chris to get home, and after a very long and exhausting conversation with him and Rebecca, I convinced them that Lynn truly needed psychiatric help. I didn't tell them everything. I wasn't prepared to go into it yet, but I told them about our last encounter, how she'd hidden in the bathroom peeking at me from the closet. They were obviously shocked, but thankfully they believed me. They too just wanted to help her. Still, they didn't think it was all that serious. Weird, but maybe not dangerous. They just kept saying that Lynn had to be playing some kind of weird joke. Maybe for YouTube, Rebecca offered, if only half-heartedly. She's doing it for the Vine, guys. That's the plot twist. She's doing it for the Vine. Chris didn't think we should involve the police just yet. He offered instead to go with me, and I readily accepted. He reasoned that calmly talking to her, trying to coax her into Trying to coax her into going willingly was the best recourse. I agreed to do it this way. At least I wouldn't be going into that house alone. We drove over this morning, just after breakfast. Man, this thing is long. This thing is long. There's no way I was going at night. When we pulled into the driveway, my stomach began doing somersaults. Her car wasn't there, but I still didn't let my guard down. The front door was ajar, and for a split second, I thought we'd see her eyes staring through the gap. I was shaking and starting to sweat. Chris, however, was fine. He waited for me to open the door, his hands in his pockets like he was going on a fucking stroll through the park. I envied his ignorance. I pushed the door open and was immediately hit with a stench of rot. Chris smelled it too, and he walked in the house behind me with his nose scrunched up. What do you guys use to clean the floors around here? Shit, Chris mumbled. Shut up, I said, my eyes darting around for any signs of Lynn. Good one, Chris. The house was deadly quiet and dark despite being 10 in the morning. All the curtains were closed up tight, refusing to allow any sunlight inside. If I hadn't left it just 2 days prior, I'd have thought the house to be abandoned. We moved through each room, carefully checking any place that she might hide, occasionally calling her name. Why the fuck are you looking under the couch? Chris asked eventually. Aren't we looking for your wife? He was looking at me like I was a moron. Yeah, but you're looking for your wife, man. Why are you looking inside the cupboards, man? You're crazy. Let's just go upstairs, I whispered. He shook his head but followed me up the stairs to check the bathroom and spare bedroom. On the way up, my shoes crunched over pieces of glass that looked to be littered over a few of the steps. I noticed that one of Lynn and my wedding portraits had hung on the wall along the staircase had been smashed. The frame hung crookedly, all the glass removed. I stared at the picture, a lump forming in my throat. We had taken the photo just after leaving the church, after saying our vows. She looked so beautiful in her white gown. I looked at Lynn's beautiful face. I never dreamed her face would be a source of terror for me. We climbed the rest of the steps and checked the spare bedroom, but it looked completely untouched. I was hesitant to go into the bathroom, my fear from that night coming back to me all at once. Chris noticed and offered to go in by himself, but I couldn't let him do that, so we walked in together, checking the closet and the shower. The bathroom looked as if it hadn't been touched since that night I left. I don't think she's here, Ben. Why don't you pack some clothes and we'll try coming back tomorrow or something? Chris said. I nodded and went to our bedroom and shoved some clothes into a duffel bag. When I checked inside our closet, I came across the source of the smell, and I gagged. Chris took one look and lost all color in his face. He had to go stand by the stairs to get away from the sight and smell. I gazed down in shock at what lay inside my bedroom closet. Soaking into the rug were at least a dozen eyeballs, all carefully laid out in pairs. Some were as large as a quarter, while others were as tiny as a marble. I stared down at the eyes she'd collected from small animals, and I wondered how she'd gotten them, and shuddered at the thought. Oh, hell no, this is when you get an exorcist, man. Man, I thought I had it bad with Becca's shoe addiction, but fuck me, your wife said you're collecting eyeballs, Chris said, gagging. Man, I think we should go, he called from down the hall. I'm getting nauseous. Alright, I grabbed my duffel and shut the closet door for my new nightmare. I stepped out of the hall and took a deep breath of air. I could taste the rot on my tongue and I couldn't help but gag. Who the fuck lines up eyeballs in their closet like that? Chris mumbled. I tried to tell you she needed help, I said. She doesn't need help, Ben. She needs a fucking exorcist. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. She needs an exorcist, man. What the fuck? Eyeballs. Ugh. You coming or what? I can't smell any... And his words died in his throat. His eyes grew wide in fear. I didn't ask him why. I could feel it. Someone was watching me, and I didn't think it was the eyes in the closet. I turned around, my eyes slowly scanning the bedroom. Christ, I whispered as I finally saw what we'd miss. Under the bed, curled on her side, watching us with the excitement of a kid on Christmas morning, was my wife. She held her hands together just under her chin and they were shaking eagerly. Now that she knew she'd been found, I could hear the quiet noises she was making, a sort of hiccuping sound in her throat, as if the excitement was just too much for her. It was unnerving to say the least. Wide eyes and that same huge smile. Everything in me told me to run, but I forced it away. This was my wife. No matter how twisted she was she was still the woman I married. I had to help her. Then, I said softly. She didn't respond, but her head bobbed back and forth in two quick little movements, as if she were nodding. Baby, I just want to help, okay? Can you let me do that? I asked. I'd taken a single step forward, approaching her like some kind of dangerous animal. I love you, Lynn, I said softly, taking another step closer. She let a tiny moan escape her wide-open mouth, and I had to resist the urge to run. Her shoulders were starting to quiver, and her eyes grew as large as saucers. I crouched down so I could see her better, and immediately saw the blood. Her hands were covered in it. They trembled more the closer I got, as if she was barely able to contain herself. Lynn, are you hurt? You're bleeding, I said. She bobbed her head again, her bloody fingers moving up and down as if playing an invisible piano. They occasionally grazed her chin, leaving smears of blood on her skin. I wanted to recoil in disgust. The smell that was coming off of her was revolting. I could feel the vomit trying to climb up my throat. Her lips were dry and stretched thin, blood seeping between the cracks. I knew she wouldn't come out on her own, but I didn't want to leave her in the state she was in. I scooted closer and reached out to her. The excited hiccuping sounds got louder, and her hands shook, fingers flexing. It was then that I could see the blood oozing from between her fingers. Oh my god, Lynn, you're bleeding, I said. Instinctively, I reached out to take her hand, but before I could even touch her, her hand sprang out towards me. A sharp pain shot through my arm, and I fell back on my ass. My arm burned, and I could see the blood dripping down onto the carpet. I looked back at her in shock and saw her grinning madly, her fingers clutching a large shard of glass. "You alright in there?" Chris asked from behind me. I turned my head slightly and nodded to him, cradling my arm to my chest. When I turned back to face Lynn, I saw that her focus had shifted. She wasn't looking at me anymore, and she wasn't smiling anymore either. She was staring past me, her eyes glaring at Chris the way a hungry lion might stare at an antelope. Her mouth was still hanging open, but it was twisted into a snarl. Oh no, she doesn't like other people finding her. I got to my feet and began walking backwards down the hall, afraid to take my eyes off her. "Are you bleeding?" Chris asked. The moment the words left his mouth, Lynn started fast scooting out from under the bed, the glass shard still in her fist. "Chris, run, go!" I yelled. He must have been too afraid to move because a second later I felt my back bump into him. He was still standing at the top of the stairs, staring at the horror that was my wife. Lynn had crawled completely out from under the bed and stood in the bedroom doorway, her face twisted in rage. Her whole body was visibly tense. Blood ran down her fingers and onto the floor. "Jesus, Lynn," Chris said. "You are playing hide and seek?" I reached back and pushed him down the steps. "Chris, this is no time to be in a Marvel movie, okay? No one-liners. Move your ass, Chris," I said as quietly but firmly as I could. Lynn bobbed her head in fast, sharp motions and began to grin, stretching her mouth open wider and wider so that her chin seemed to touch her chest. I heard Chris mutter a prayer, and then he was running down the stairs. I stood at the top of the steps, stuck between the love for a woman who clearly needed serious help and self-preservation. "I only want to help," I said, choking back tears. Her eyes focused on me once again as she slowly lifted the glass, holding it out in front of her. And then she started sprinting towards me, grinning with utter excitement. Thankfully, my body took over, and I flew down the stairs, skipping 2 or 3 at a time. I made it to the front door before I felt her leap onto my back, wrapping her arms around my neck, her open mouth next to my ear so that I could hear those terrible hiccuping sounds up close. I shook her off of me, knocking her to the floor. I felt a searing pain in my back as she went, but I tore open the front door and I bolted to my car. Chris was standing in the front yard, talking on the phone to the police. I didn't say a word. I just ran to my car and jumped in. Chris took the hint and followed me, still on the line with 911. I watched the rear view mirror, sure I'd see her there running after us. But I never did. I went straight to the ER and got 11 stitches in my arm and 3 in my back. The police asked a lot of questions and went back to my house to do a search, but of course Lynn wasn't there. They advised me to stay with a friend or relative for a while and to file a restraining order as soon as I could, but none of those things would matter. Somehow I just knew. I dropped Chris off at home and went to a motel an hour away. I wanted to put as much distance between me and Lynn as I could. This is where I've been for the last 4 hours. I thought maybe the police would find her. Maybe they'd get the help she desperately needs. But now I don't think so, because 40 minutes ago, I got a text from an unknown number. Just 3 words. "I found you," and a picture attached. The picture was dark and grainy, but I instantly knew what it was. There was no mistaking my wife's eye. I started typing this out immediately after. I don't know what to do. I'm alone and scared, and I can't help but feel that I'm being watched. Holy shit. This one was... Oh my god. Wow. I just need a moment to, I guess, process everything, because this one was so long, but also full of things and emotions and stuff. Oh goodness. So I'd say this is the best so far. Yeah, I think my initial judgment was right by like arranging the titles from most scary to least scary, and I read from the least scariest. Yeah, I think that kind of adds up. right? The whistling one was cool, but I think that's the third best. The the uh the the Jack one was creepy, but this one takes the cake. This one kind of has two parts, and I think some horror movies still kind of devolve into this, where it's like, okay, we have the creepy part first, and then for whatever reason, in the second half, it turns into like an action movie or like a thriller. You know what I mean? Where it's like the first half will have like some creepy supernatural stuff, but then by the end, for some reason, we're throwing hands, we're like trading blows, we're burning down houses, we're like getting attacked, or, those kinds of horror movies. I think the one that I immediately think of is The Boy. I know there's a second movie, but I'm talking about the first one because I saw that in theaters with my friends. And what weirded me out about it was, at first it was creepy. There was like a doll. It was like a Chucky situation where there was like a doll in this house, and it was like moving, in weird places, and there's some weird supernatural things happening. But by the end of it, it was revealed, spoilers for The Boy, I guess, but it was revealed that the kid that the doll was supposed to look like is like a guy living in the walls of the mansion, like literally living in the walls of the mansion. And every time the doll had moved, it was because he came out of secret doors and like moved it around, which is so comical to me. And in the end, it just turned into like a slasher flick. And I was so confused because at the beginning, it really was like a horror movie with a doll and shit in a haunted house. And then suddenly it just became, hey, no, it's like Friday the 13th or something. I haven't actually seen that movie, but that's what I assume. So this kind of feels like that, where the beginning was genuinely creepy. Just the idea that Lynn was like hiding around and like scaring the absolute living shit out of Ben. Really creepy stuff. Honestly, great job. But the second half went into stabby murder eyeballs and stuff, and so it's like, it's a different kind of horror. It's not a horror that unsettles me, but it's a horror that, but it makes sense in the context of the story because it escalates, right? We start off more subtle, nothing really happens, but everything that happens is really creepy, and we slowly build up to a climax, and that build up leads to more action scenes and actual conflict, like physical conflict. So I'm fine with that. But man, this is a roller coaster. Yeah, I can see why this is up there. This is the second most upvoted story in Our Sus No Sleep of all time. All right, so let's get rid of this and this. Oh. Also, I'm sorry if you can hear like me sniffling or something. It's because my right eye has been tearing up the entire time. I've had it closed the entire time because I think it's slightly irritated. Yeah, I guess it's my eyes doing things again, so that's fun. Yeah, it should. I don't know if I should continue on the stream or just end it here and just do the game another day, because it might take a while, because I don't know how long the game actually is. So, some info of the game. It's not a full game, actually. It's a demo. The game isn't out. It's a visual novel. It's a horror visual novel, but it's not scary in the sense that it's like supernatural horror or gore or anything, but it's more like psychological, I guess, or at least that's what I've seen from like the page. And also it involves hot guys. Yeah, there are hot guys. I wonder if I can pull up an image of that. Wait, let me go and check. Yeah, I was looking through games, right? And I was just thinking, what horror game would be good on my channel? Because, the kind of things I do here, it's like, oh, I want to find something more appropriate. Lo and behold, there is, yeah, it's called Touch Starved, a dark romance visual novel. So it's not horror, it's technically horror, but it's dark romance. I don't know if you can. Okay, I'm just gonna do the window capture. Yeah. Let me put this. Yeah, so this is the game in question that I wanted to play. There's only a demo out right now. You can get this demo on Steam and on itch.io. Yeah. So, wait, let me do some stuff like this. Yeah. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I actually have the game open right now. I'm ready to like switch tabs whenever I want. So it's a thing, right? There's some hot characters, right? Got some guys, and features. There's customizable characters. You can choose between some origins. You can play it multiple times because there's like multiple endings. 5 interconnected routes with 16 plus hours of gameplay, with multiple endings to each route. Contains 15 plus possible endings, which is really cool. And then these are their socials. You can again find it. This is the itch.io page. So I might move this stream. Yeah, I don't feel like you have to push it together. Yeah, exactly. So also, I've been reading out loud for the past like 2 hours. So it's my voice is not doing great. So I think I'll push the stream back. I don't know when. I want to do it soon though. I want to start streaming again a bit because I've actually been working behind the scenes to do some VTubing stuff, actually, like a separate channel, separate from this thing and everything, different character, all of that. I don't want to say what it is because I want it to be a total secret. If you stumble across me in the wild, then that's great, but it's a different thing. So I feel like maybe I should start streaming on this channel again just to be, just to be prepared, get back into the groove of things, and also give you guys some food, some content, because I'm gonna be honest, guys, I don't know what to upload anymore. I'm totally selective on Patreon. I still upload like 4 NSFW audios on there every month, and I still do commissions and stuff. But in terms of safe for work stuff that I'm posting on the YouTube, man, I don't know what to do. I was contemplating, right? Like, okay, I got one more Halloween audio that I'm supposed to do this month. What the fuck do I do? And I'm just like, I don't know. And so I just ended up doing this stream instead. So I'm probably just gonna cut back to like 1 audio a month and then a stream. I'm not sure again, but we'll see. I the thing about me and promises is that I never make promises because I don't know if I can keep them. But these are fun to do, and I'm glad that whoever's in chat right now, thank you all for being here and listening to these stories. I hope you have a great Halloween, whether you celebrate it or not. Just have a good day in general. I hope November is great. It's gonna be busy for me. As we're heading towards the end of the year and the holidays are coming up. Hopefully y'all get some time off of work if you're working, a time off of school if you're schooling. Yeah, some great stuff. So thank you all for coming tonight. Tonight for me. I don't know what time it is for you guys. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.